Hey guys, have you ever listened to one of your students read and you knew that they were struggling, and they were struggling so bad that you could see the stress and the anxiety and the fear on their face? You could hear it in their voice. They're choppy, they're reading like a robot, and you're almost sure, how are they ever going to know what they've read? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today is fluency and why it is so important for our intervention students or our struggling readers to practice and build their fluency. So hang with me. We're going to have the slide deck in about 2 seconds. Welcome guys to video number 3 of our 5-part series about how we are supporting paraeducators in the area of reading intervention. My name is Emily Muchanti and I'm a reading specialist and interventionist and a little bit of a reading diva, and I am here to help you on your journey to being the absolute best paraprofessional that you can be, or if you're a teacher training paras, to help you know what to do and guide your paras along the way. So when we're trying to learn something new, we know that we keep doing what we do until we know better. And so that's really what this series is about. We're going to start by building our knowledge. Every kind of change or improvement in anything in your whole life starts with knowledge. You have to know better before you can do better. And paras in particular can really affect the trajectory of a child's education. And so we're going to work really hard to build that knowledge foundation in the area of reading for our paraeducators. Now, after we've got that knowledge base kind of built up, then we have to really look at instruction. How are we going to explicitly, directly, and systematically instruct in the skill deficits that are assessed for our students, whether they're in our RSP programs or they're our students in our RTI programs? And then finally, the whole point is to add tools into your instructional toolkit so that when you are working with a student, you have more strategies and ideas in your back pocket, and you can be incredibly responsive to your students' needs. So here's this series that you're jumping into right in the middle of it. And if you haven't seen our other 2 videos, I hope you'll go back and watch those as well. And then like and subscribe so that you don't miss the next video in the series. There are 5 important aspects of intervention that we have to focus our attention on. And these are the 5 things that are going to most rapidly and efficiently move the reading achievement needle for your students. And those are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, academic vocabulary, and of course the be-all end-all Mac Daddy, comprehension. So this series is going to look at each of those a little bit specifically, give you a guide to help you look at your program that you currently are working in and see what kinds of adjustments that you can make to really hone in on those skills and help your students. So here we go. We're in video number 3 for fluency. And what is this? Well, we're really working toward automaticity. And we need to answer the question, what is fluency? Fluency is having the ability to read with accuracy, expression, and at the rate of natural speech. It is not speed reading. Good fluency should sound like we talk. And it is really the bridge to getting us to comprehension. And that's why it is one of the things that we really need to focus on, because what is the purpose of reading? Well, the purpose is always to comprehend text. We don't just say words to say words, we're trying to pull meaning. Now, fluency, interestingly, is a very easy skill to track and measure. And the correlation between a student's fluency level with their comprehension is so closely aligned that we can very quickly assess a fluency and get an idea about that student's comprehension level. Now, I've been taking you through Scarborough's rope, and I think this is really important because this is the whole visual of how reading develops. We have all of these language comprehension skills that we need woven in with all of our word recognition skills. And again, they come together to get us to the end all be all, which is comprehension. So where does fluency fit in? Well, fluency is about increasing the automatic. We want to reach what we call automaticity, and it's the ability to read without having to think about the decoding. This fluency is what is going to bring together some of these language comprehension skills and tighten it up so that we can really be wonderful comprehenders. So let's take a look at, what do students in your programs look like that have strong fluency skills? These might be in your programs or in the general education program. So a student with good fluency is going to be able to read smoothly, effortlessly, without interruption, at an appropriate rate. They're going to have that rise and fall in their voice. They're going to pause at punctuation. They're going to emphasize important words. They will naturally do this, or they've become so skilled in this that it appears that they're doing it naturally. So they adjust their phrasing, they adjust their expression in order to match the meaning of the text. And then finally, typically, but not always, good fluent readers also are able to comprehend at grade level. Now, those things, sometimes we've got other issues that we have to jump into, but typically they're going to have some strong comprehension skills. So on the flip side of that, what do our struggling readers look like in regards to fluency? And this one just hurts my heart. Students that struggle with fluency are going to laboriously sound out so many words, maybe even words they really know, but their reading is going to become slow and choppy. It will have no expression at times, and this is sometimes what we call robot reading. Students that struggle with fluency can also struggle with comprehension. And this is because either their reading is inaccurate, so they don't have enough accuracy, or the cognitive load on decoding the words is so grand that there's just nothing left to think about and focus on the meaning of the text. So why do we focus on fluency? Now, I have to tell you a story, true story. When I was in grad school and this idea of fluency came up, I really took that to mean that we're supposed to make kids read for speed and not really be concerned about anything else other than how fast they go. So I was a real cynic, I think, when it came to fluency instruction to begin with. And then I did more research and I started listening to other experts in the field, and I started to see the connection about why fluency is so important to comprehension. We know that comprehension is always the purpose for reading. That is what we want readers to do always. But fluency is really the bridge how we get there. So think about it this way. If a student struggles with decoding and thereby fluency, there is less brain energy available to focus on comprehension. And fluency is a very concrete, quantifiable number that can be tracked. And students can see their growth, and it just becomes a very motivating factor. Now, before we go on, let me give you this driving analogy that I use very often in order to explain how fluency leads to comprehension. I want you to think about it this way. When you learn to drive, or when you taught your children to drive, because many of us have been in the car with our 16-year-olds, you know that when you are first learning to drive, someone is got 10 and 2. They are concerned about where their foot goes. Do I push the gas? Do I push the brake? A new driver is thinking about the mechanics of their body in regards to how to make that car stop and go. Because of that, they have no idea where they're going. Sometimes they don't even see the stop sign there. True story. But this is where their energy is. This is why mom or dad or the driving instructor is in the passenger seat going, turn your left turn signal, right turn signal, stop, look left. We are reminding them because their cognitive load is focused simply on making the car go and stop. reading is the exact same way. New readers are simply focused on the decoding. I need to think of this word. How do I put those sounds together to form a word? There is no brain energy left at that stage to think about what they are actually reading and to draw meaning from it. So just like going back to our driver, once our driver becomes a little more proficient, now they might be able to have a conversation with you in the car as they're driving, or they might be able to pay attention where they're going and look at the scenery. And finally, what's going to happen, just like a driver, you reach the stage of automaticity. Now, you and I get in the car to drive to work or take a trip out of town, and we become so automatic in how to drive. Have you ever gotten 5 miles down the road and thought, how'd I get here? That is true automaticity. And that's what our readers will eventually get to. And so we are looking at, with Fluency, helping to speed up the mechanics of the decoding of the words so that they can have more cognitive energy available to really focus on making meaning from that text. That's it. Pro tip here. One thing I would suggest is consider graphing your fluency for your students because it's so incredibly motivating. So what can we do about it? Well, we know that with knowledge comes power. And so that's what we're here today to do, is to build our knowledge around fluency, what it is, how I can help support our students through that. So here are some amazing strategies that work. And these are things that I have done in all of my interventions. The first and biggest one, in my opinion, is repeated readings. Now, repeated reading is not to be confused with rereading. You know how you get to the end of a passage and you're like, okay, I don't really know what I just read. Well, you know, something might have distracted us, or we were so in that phase of automaticity that we got by without really focusing on the meaning. And so we go back and we read the passage and we figure it out. That's different. Repeated reading is a strategy whereby a student reads the same passage over several days and they track their progress, preferably. You don't have to, but I would highly encourage you to consider doing this. And so if a student is reading on that first day, we call it a cold time. There's no practice and we get our first number. And you can see that in this graphic. It would be the blue one that is on the left side of the graph. And then each day the student will read again, and they may or may not time again, but they will read it over several days practicing. You would have modeled it for them. You would have discussed vocabulary words. You would have made sure that they were reading it accurately and with the correct expression. And then at the last day, however many days, maybe 3 or 5 days, you would do a hot time and you would time it again. And what this does is it visually represents with a concrete line and color the growth that can be achieved in the eyes of a student. Now, I want you to think about this. When you're a struggling reader and you've felt failure after failure and struggle after struggle, you don't want to read it all. And they will avoid reading altogether. So how are we going to motivate kids in order to get them to want to get back on that reading bandwagon? And this can be a great way. They see their growth. They realize, oh my gosh, you mean that effort did pay off? And if we do that over time and over time, those skills that we are working on, those words that we are reading are doing something called orthographically mapping in their brain so that there's less cognitive energy needed to decode them the next time. And then we see it transfer into other areas, other texts that they're reading. Fantastic, super great way to build fluency. Another one of my favorites is Reader's Theater, where students are reading plays and they are practicing because it still has a repeated reading component. In our intervention at the end of every semester, we always did a Reader's Theater performance where the kids they would take on parts and they would read their parts, and we would practice for the last week before our Christmas break or our summer break, and they would perform it, and it was amazing. My reading divas, my paras, were amazing and would go all out to get these kids to feel like they were on Broadway with costumes and scenery and the whole thing. And it was amazing. Fantastic way, not only fun and motivating, but it still utilizes the repeated reading. And then an oldie but a goodie, and always one we should lean on, is modeling good fluent reading. We need to read to our kids. They should always hear us read with expression, pausing at the punctuation, so that they can learn to emulate and model that type of reading. So what can you use? Well, what I've done is gathered a few things that I have used in my own experience and my own interventions that you might want to consider looking into. Now, I talked to you a lot about repeated reading, and I wholeheartedly believe it. I was not in favor of it until I got into the intervention classroom as a reading specialist, and I saw the power and effectiveness it had. So if you are like, I'm not so sure about this, I've been there, I have lived it, I have tried it, and I have seen the magic. So give it a try. One of the things I love is something called 6-Minute Solution. I believe it is published by Sopris, and it is a series of text-only grade-level passages, expository text. If you get the primary version, there actually are decodable passages and word passages for our kinders and our first graders. And it gives you 25 passages within each grade level, graphs and everything, and it lays it out very succinctly how you can utilize the program. You just create basically a big kit where you can pull passages and put them in page protectors, and it's wonderful. If you want to know more about repeated reading, I would love to do a training on that. Just drop me a comment and I can look into how I can provide that for you. Another thing, Reader's Theaters, you can get free scripts online. They're everywhere. And you can get them for various grade levels, various topics. You can purchase them. Scholastic, I believe, has a number of them, but these are great at any grade level. Don't discount the importance of your classroom library, giving your kids a choice in what to read or taking them to the library. I will say this one thing about classroom libraries in regard to reading intervention or RSP is we have to be really careful with providing silent reading time for kids that struggle to read. That time is often used best when you can pull them for some guided reading in the back and still help to instruct them. At least if you see kids that are doing fake reading or kind of that pretending and looking at the pictures, then it's not the best use of your instructional time. And then finally, one of my favorite tracking tests is a cadence. And I see that I have 4th through 12th. No, you can use a cadence or Dibbles or Ames Web, any of these for kindergarten on. Mostly kindergarten through 8th grade. So that's a typo on my part. Sorry about that. But you get really interesting reports that are, again, very quantifiable, meaning you can attach a number and you can track it and the kids love to see it. If you're a teacher working with paras, your paras need to see this data because it's motivating for all of us. In my opinion, a cadence has a really great data management tool for this. That's the one that I have leaned toward. I have been trained in a cadence and I'm very happy with that one. So you know some of the things that you can use to build fluency. So you are at the point now where you need to take stock of your resources. What curriculum do you have at your disposal that will help build a student's fluency? And I'm going to give you a little bit of a sidebar here, that if you are using leveled text for the basis of your interventions, you really need to consider adding a component of things that are decodable so that we can work on the phonics piece and thereby helping us build fluency in that automaticity, that path to automaticity. So what curriculum do you have? Do you know how to use it? And I mean, know how to use it well. And then are you seeing progress in your students to know if it's working? And again, this is a conversation that should not be done alone. You are not an island. An RTI program, an intervention, an RSP team, these are teams of educators that include specialists, case study managers, paras that we're getting you to be nicely trained. This conversation happens with everybody. So if you have a question about that, bring your team together. And then finally, we have to progress monitor. No matter what you are doing in any of these areas of reading instruction related to intervention, if you are not progress monitoring every 2 to 3 weeks to see if what you're doing is working, then you are missing a very important opportunity. The kids that we work with are already behind. We don't have time to just kind of willy-nilly apply instruction and hope that it works. So we need to hold ourselves accountable to track our students' progress. The way it works is, if what you're doing is working, by all means, keep doing it. For goodness sakes, no matter what, keep doing it. But if you see kids stagnate or dip, and I'm talking within about a 3 data point, you should give yourself 3 data points to figure that out, then you have to make an adjustment. You cannot wait until their next IEP. You cannot wait until the next report card. You cannot wait until the end of the grade level, because all that's happening is that the gap continues to widen. We have to stop the spread of the gap as soon as we can and start making up some time. All right. So you should probably subscribe right now so that you don't miss any of our other conversations that are coming. Next time, we're going to talk about academic vocabulary and what that's going to look like in our interventions. And I've got news on our website front. The parapros.com is coming soon. We are working on developing our website. I have some resources that I'd like to offer to you in how to gather this data that I'm asking you to look at, something that you can take and maybe kind of evaluate your programs and have those conversations. And if you're not sure who I am yet, I am somebody who is so passionate about helping kids learn to read that it is time for me to break out beyond the walls of my classroom and see how we can help. And I know that by reaching our paraeducators and our teachers that work with paras, that we can make some amazing, amazing gains in our students. Paras feel undervalued, they are undertrained, and they can hold the key to building your award-winning programs. So spend the time building them up, supporting them, and training them. All right. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you will continue to subscribe, like this video, leave me a comment. Those things are all so important, and it helps me to know if I'm on the right track to serving you in the areas that you need. Join us for the next video. It's going to be a great ride. Bye for now.